welcome everyone. We're very excited to be here for our panel discussion. This is an amazing team of people, so hopefully you can see all of us. We will be discussing today an invisible truth, a personal journey of self-discovery and acceptance. So I think what you'll experience over the next 30 to 40 minutes is the personal journeys of the four people that you see on your screen. Our goal here today is to share our personal journeys. We'll talk about bisexuality and our identities, how we arrived at these identities, and our journeys are all very different, but very valid. And then we'll talk about a call to action. So why does this matter in the workplace? Why does it matter to our organization and obviously yours as well? So we'll go ahead and get started with the short introductions. My name is Stacy Kelly. I'll be your moderator for the panel, but also one of the panelists. I've been with my firm, Bank of America, for almost 23 years. I spent 15 of that working with the LGBTQ plus Pride employee network within our company, and currently co-chair our efforts around global education and leadership. So that's a little bit about me. So now let's go to Allison.
Hello, Allison Ashford. I've been with Bank of America for about 8 years, and I identify as bisexual, and I'm in the Enterprise Independent Testing Group within Bank of America, and I've been a part of the Pride Network for most of that 8 years, and I'm currently a segment leader supporting the Pride Network.
Awesome.
Looking forward to chatting.
Great. Andrew.
Hi, my name is Andrew Mize. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I've been working at Bank of America for just over 3 years. I identify as bisexual. Currently, I work for the Workforce Analytics Reporting and Data Governance team within Global Human Resources. And for the last 18 to 20 months, we've been working on all things data and reporting related to COVID for the enterprise and for top of house. And I'm really excited to speak with everyone today.
Awesome. And Christopher.
Hi, my name is Chris Sangraj, and I've used the terms, or I use the pronouns he, him, and his, identify as B, and I've been with the firm for 22 years this fall, and I'm currently aligned with our data management group within the bank. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So thanks, everyone. So a little bit more about my identity. I kind of skipped over that. My pronouns are she and her. I identify as bisexual and pansexual. And so now that you've heard that term from each of us, maybe let's talk a little bit about how we agree on a definition of bisexuality. So Robin Oakes, we've worked with her before. She's an amazing author. If you haven't picked up any of her books, you really should. But she has a definition for bisexuality that's kind of become the quintessential. So I call myself bisexual because I acknowledge that I have within myself the potential to be attracted romantically and or sexually to people of more than one gender, not necessarily at the same time, not necessarily in the same way, and not necessarily to the same degree. So it's a very open definition, and perhaps that's why under the B+ umbrella, there's so much variance between all of us. But what we're here today to talk about is the validity of all of those variations, because I think that's a really compelling conversation. And so as we talk about our different journeys, I think that will become more clear to you, how those differences, there's actually more the same than there is difference, but we'll see. So first question I'm going to launch with today is tell us a little bit about your personal journey of self-discovery and acceptance. And was there a specific moment maybe that led you to realize that your identity is valid? So Allison, can we start with you?
Yes, I'd love to. And I identify as she, hers, and hers. I also did not mention that at the beginning. So a little bit about me. I'm from Waco, Texas, just a small town in South Texas. And I grew up not knowing much about, really not knowing anything about LGBT people and terms. And so to me, it was pretty foreign. I also grew up in a rough environment. I definitely went through my fair share of childhood trauma, and I would say probably from about 3 through 17, so a lot of years. And I think for me, I did what I thought I needed to do. You see the fairy tale, Cinderella, the prince, and got married right out of high school, had 2 kids. I knew at the time that I definitely was attracted to females, but I kept it a secret. And, Cosmo said it's normal. It doesn't mean that you're a lesbian, doesn't mean you're gay. And so I just thought that's just what it was. It's just normal thoughts, and it didn't mean anything. And then after my divorce, I think I did a lot of soul searching, and I was scared to come out during my divorce. I didn't trust that it would be kept a secret, and I was afraid all of our friends would shun us. So that was definitely a fear. And so I did decide after our divorce to come out, and actually came out for the first time to a coworker, a safe coworker who was very accepting and I felt safe talking to. And that coworker is actually the one that introduced me to the gay community. And so I was actually just surprised. I was like, oh, there's a whole community. That's awesome. And so as part of my journey, I think self-love was definitely an issue for me. And just knowing who I was in general, I think because of my early years, never hearing terms and wondering if my past had influenced who I was currently in my attraction. So I did a lot of soul searching, sought therapy, did a lot of years of therapy. And I think for me, I just found that the more I love myself and the more comfortable I got with myself, the more I could accept that I am bisexual. It is valid. I don't have to pick sides. I had my gay friends saying, oh, you can think Brad Pitt's hot. Does it mean that you're straight? And then my straight friends were like, oh, it doesn't matter if you're attracted to Selma Hayek or whoever. It doesn't mean you're lesbian. And so I did feel kind of like I was pulled between two sides for a long time. But I just, as I learned to love myself more, I got more comfortable with that and was more vocal about it and owned it. And I'm in a really good place now. I'm very happy. And my partner's a female. Her name's Bethany. And hopefully we'll be getting married towards the end of the year.
Awesome. Hey, Chris, that's wonderful. Congratulations, right? Chris, maybe you want to share a little bit about a pivotal moment for you?
Sure. So I came out in the early 90s, right after high school, and I was out in college as gay and pursued relationships romantic mostly with exclusively men, and got married and adopted 2 children, and it was very, very comfortable in my life and where it is, and I still am. However, the Robin Oaks definition, sitting in a conference room, very much like we would be if we were all together at Out and Equal, and was reading that definition. And I was surprised at how much it resonated with me. So there I was, kind of in a nondescript conference room in Baltimore, Maryland, reflecting on that definition and what it meant to me, and how much it resonated. And I kind of got up from that and said, well, what do I do with that? What do I do with that now, being happily partnered and very much at peace of where I am and not looking to make any changes? What does it mean to me? What truth does it speak to me now? And what truth will it speak to me a year from now or 10 years from now, when things won't be any different? So that's the journey I've been on, and there are a couple of great takeaways that we'll probably dive into in a little bit as a teaser of maybe what that means to me, and how do I engage in that truth? How do I live that truth? And what does it mean now that it really is kind of out of action, out of play for me, as far as I can tell?
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I had a little bit of a different experience. From a very early age, I knew I was different. I kind of always knew, and I kind of gravitated towards, I would find a female attractive, and then I would find a male attractive. But I was also a giant nerd. I've always been a nerd my whole life. And I've loved science and technology. My father was in the sciences. My mother was an educator, and we were exposed to that very early on. And so I hung out with a lot of my kind of nerdy, geeky friends, kind of people on the fringes, oddballs. And that was kind of really wonderful because when I kind of told them, hey, I think I'm bisexual, they all said, okay, that's the least interesting, weird thing about me, is that I'm bisexual. And I was really, really blessed, I feel like, because I really didn't, contrasting with kind of what the experience that Allison and so many others have had. I really didn't struggle with it. I kind of always knew that I was different. And, I think as soon as I learned the term for it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm bisexual. However, I think in my professional life, I've always tended to keep that private. It always seemed like, regardless, that's kind of a private matter. And I didn't understand the necessity of being kind of openly out and openly. And I think as I've gone through my journey, I've kind of discovered why that's important for me and why that's important for me as a leader, why that's important for me personally, and what a rewarding that experience that can be. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. My story is a little similar to yours in that I knew from a very early age, I fell in love with my two best friends. One was a boy and one was a girl. And it was just no big deal to me. I spent a lot of time with the drama kids. I was in, a lot of production. So when I first came out, I was 16 years old to a bunch of drag queens because I was doing their makeup backstage. And they were like, oh, girl, welcome to family. And so for me, maybe it's because I grew up in kind of a progressive area or, what have you, it felt very normal. But what I struggled with throughout my life, and this maybe gets into my second question about biggest challenges and obstacles, is the acceptance of others. It's always felt so strange to me. My internal dialogue is, wow, you have a hard time understanding this? You need to work on that. That's my internal dialogue. And I'm thankful for my tough upbringing because it has toughened me to outside critique, and I listen more to the voice in my head than the influences outside. But it's damn hard from one day to the next, So I was going to ask, what's the biggest challenge or obstacle that you've faced in the workplace? I'll share mine first. Is switching partners, being with a female when I first started at the company that I currently work for, and when that relationship fell apart, which sometimes they do, I started dating a man, and eventually I've married him, and we've been together for almost 20 years now. But when I announced that, or I didn't even announce it, I just started showing up with him instead. People really struggled with that in ways that I didn't quite understand. My straight friends, some of them seemed overwhelmingly happy to see me with a man. So what that did is kind of erode any authenticity to them previously accepting me for who I am. And again, I haven't changed. I'm still bisexual. So that means they really don't accept me for being bisexual. They just accept me for being with a man. And then I lost a lot of gay friends because they just assumed that because I was a woman, no matter how many times I said, here I am and I'm bi, they didn't hear that. They saw the gender of my partner and I had somehow betrayed them. So that's some of the obstacles that I faced in the workplace. So maybe we can start in reverse and we'll go with Andrew first.
Yeah, absolutely. So my primary concern has always been that I want to first be seen as competent. I've never wanted to be labeled that bi guy or feel like, not that I really felt like I would be denied opportunities, but more that I might be judged or be labeled in that way. And I felt like that was something that I wasn't particularly comfortable with. And I really have always wanted my bisexuality to be seen as just another facet of my personality. I love baseball. I love science and technology. I'm bisexual. I like to cook. I like to cycle. It's just another part of who I am. However, I think as I've kind of worked and have mentored and worked with others, I have watched as other people who felt afraid to bring their full and complete self with them to work. They felt like they needed to hold back that part, whether it's, I had a particular mentee recently who's female and young, and she's had some feelings for this another female, and she wanted to bring her to a work event, and she didn't really feel comfortable with that. And I think a big part of me getting more involved in things like this has been the result of the fact that I feel like that I want to be able to bring that, and for others to see me, like I said, it's another facet of my personality. It's another facet of who I am at work. And that I'm not afraid, and that you shouldn't feel afraid, and that you should feel welcome to bring your full, complete self work with you, because we know that has such a positive influence on people's ability to feel appreciated at work, for them to be as productive and contribute as much as they possibly can. So that's kind of my path to getting to here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Chris, so how about you? A big obstacle or challenge that you faced in the workplace?
Yeah, I think with sort of this late life realization, it's kind of coming out twice. But for me, having that, having started my work career very early in my 20s, and having all that discrimination because I was with a same gendered partner, really opened my eyes to I need to create an environment for the next generation that's coming after us, the generation that we're trying to attract as clients and customers,
Right.
and also as employees. I don't want them to ever feel like they are walking into an environment that's not going to accept them and that they have to hold something back. Like what Andrew was saying about someone who is in this generation or a young person who has that, and works in that environment or comes to work with that. I feel that that was me 25 years ago, and I don't want anyone to feel that way. I have 2 children, and my oldest is 15. So he is a burgeoning consumer, and he is going to be entering in the workforce, hopefully, in the next 10 years, and hopefully it's at a place like the place I work. And I think of that environment and say, well, if he came to work being who he is right now, how would he be treated? How would he be judged? Would they look at the gender of his partner or how he dresses and use that as a stand-in for the quality of his work? And the answer to that is I don't know. And I don't like not knowing of where that's going to be for him or for his generation. Incidentally, he did come out as non-binary and has, experimented with a lot of different identities within, his very young life. And I want to celebrate and acknowledge all of them. And I want to create a work environment where that will be celebrated and acknowledged. And in order to make that change for him in 10, 15 years, hopefully 10, not 15, hopefully he's out of my house and gainfully employed and a productive member of society in that time. I need to work on that now. I need to build the change I want to see.
I have a 15-year-old too. He's already a consumer of my money, and he's really good at spending my money. So, but yeah, thinking about that, being a client, being an employee, creating that right environment here and having it be welcoming is so important. Allison, I know you've got more to say.
So for me, I think coming out at work was a challenge for me personally. I was really scared. I had to kind of face my own biases as well, because I had a manager who seemed to me that he was kind of militant. And I was like, he's got to be like a sergeant or something. And I was scared to come out. And I was participating in Pride Networks, but I was kind of a silent partner, not really putting myself out there. And I realized there's no B representation. I couldn't find anyone else like me that, and so I was like, I have to stand up and be present and be visible, because there's no one else like me that I can find. And I know there's people out there, because I know when I came out of the closet, they came out of the woodworks as well and shared it with me confidentially, so I finally came out at work, and I was also afraid, to Andrew's point on making sure that people perceive me as competent. And it's like, there's the biphobia where people think that you're attracted to everyone. And no, I'm not attracted to everyone because I'm bisexual. I still, it's the person, not the parts for me. And so I think I was worried, are they going to perceive me as a risk, professionally? Am I just not professional? So I think just the coming out process, and luckily Bank of America is very welcoming, and I had ended up having no issues with it at all, but it's definitely scary.
Yeah. And those biphobias are very real. People thinking that we're going to create drama in your business environment. It's always going to be an HR issue, or that we can't make decisions, that we're indecisive. We can't pick a team, so therefore, how can we make a decision? Those are prevalent. And so I know that those can be stigmas that we think about, and that's great. Thanks for sharing. So what can others do to create and include, we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about how your partner's gender can create or impact your identity. Because now that we've talked about all of our different situations, opposite sex relationship, same sex relationship, or still on the market and dating, how does that gender of the partner affect your identity, and how do you remain visible? You know, I can share, I walk into an event with my spouse and he's a man and we're holding hands, everybody goes, straight couple. So I have to actively come out all the time and reset expectations and correct people who use assumptive pronouns or assumptive language, or non-inclusive languages, we've come to understand. So maybe share a little bit about that experience for you, Chris, with a same-gendered partner. How do you stay visible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like you said, the self-identification and making sure people understand that you're not telegraphing any changes in your life. You're just being true to yourself. That it is no more authentic to look at someone with a same gender or opposite gendered partner and then make that assumption as if they came to that event single and say, well, obviously you have no sexual orientation because you're not with someone. That obviously we would never do, but we make the supposition with if you come with a same gender or opposite gendered person. And that just also negates anyone who doesn't fit into a binary definition of gender. I mean, someone comes in who's non-binary, are people just talking about them or what's going on? So it really, it is that transfer of how you're making that assumption and letting the person speak for themselves and speak to their truth. And that's what we should start with, rather than saying, okay, that person came in with so-and-so, so that means that they're this and that. I think that's something that hopefully we're definitely starting to see, especially with a younger generation, that's no longer being assumed based on who you're showing up with or who you're not showing up with.
The world likes tiny boxes with labels on them that are discrete.
Right.
And here we are, we're in boxes on this screen, but we don't fit in boxes, right? Allison, maybe share a little bit about how you stay visible.
I think for me, I was influenced by an out executive that I came across at work, and she just had a picture of herself, a meet me slide. And it was just, here's me and my partner. And it wasn't a thing. It was just, here we are. And I saw that and that influenced me. So from then on, I've just come with a meet me slide. If I'm meeting a new team, joining a new team, presenting anything, when it's about me, here's me and my partner. I think for me, if for some reason I were to not work out with my current spouse and be in the market again, I would have to show up the same way. Here's me and my partner, but I'm bisexual. My pronouns are she and her. I'm bisexual. It's just, to Andrew's point earlier, it's just another part of who I am. So, and I think intentionally visible, that you said, is very important.
Yes. And then I love what Chris said about, I'm not telegraphing that I'm on the market or I'm hunting or that I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm just telling you something that's important about me, and trying to make myself available and show you who I am. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's important to call out is that we know that there are more bisexual people out there than there are gay and lesbian. We're kind of the silent majority in the world, in the business world. And I think that affects our visibility to some degree, or what it says about our visibility. And I think kind of to that, I'm currently with a woman, but I'm not straight. And previously I was with a man. I wasn't gay then. I'm not straight now. I wasn't gay then. I was always bisexual. And I think that can be challenging as we interact with people at work. And I think it's very important that we feel welcome. And as a bisexual person, I always want people to know that about me in the same way, like we said earlier, that it's another facet, but also so that others will feel comfortable sharing that with us, because we know we're out there, but we don't generally say it. We tend to not be visible. So I think making sure that people understand that, okay, just because you're with a same-sex person doesn't necessarily mean that you're gay. The fact that you're with an opposite gendered person does not mean that you're heterosexual. And I think that's really important as far as our ability to maintain that visibility and maintain that we are out here and that we're a valid contributing part so that people feel comfortable. Again, calling back to what I said earlier, bringing in your full authentic self. So that's why I think it matters.
Yeah. Well, I was also so my next question was going to be about how we create an inclusive environment. So I'm going to piggyback off what you were talking about. So if we're this majority, right? Many of us, including all of the folks here at Out and Equal this week, we're employee network leaders. We're diversity and inclusion thought leaders in our companies. If you're not naming off 15, 20 bisexuals that you work with, then you probably have the same opportunity that many of us do, is that it's a silent majority. People are in the wings. They're hiding an ally. They are maybe misunderstood even within the LGBT plus community, that, based on the gender of their partner, or people hear about their dating history, so they make assumptions. So, how do we create an inclusive environment? And I think as employee network leaders, you need to intentionally, actively, progressively include Bs. If you're hosting a panel session like something like this, if you've got a male and a female up there and you're saying, well, we've got the gays, we've got the lesbians, well, the bis are kind of, it's the same thing. It's the, and then one transgender person. I have seen that happen, and I'm looking around and I'm going, we don't have a bisexual person on this panel. They're like, yeah, but we have a guy and a girl and we have a transgender person or a non-binary person. We're good. I'm like, no, the bi experience is completely different than all of those things those people are saying, which is why we have our own letter. So, ask yourself what bi programming you specifically have at your organization. How are you making space intentionally for your bi partners and business peers? And then, I think they will come out of the woodwork. I think you'll find that we're all around you. The numbers demonstrate that. So maybe let's think about our answers for an inclusive environment. Chris, I think you've got some really great thoughts about this.
Yeah, I think just being sharing, having spaces of where people can share their stories, their coming out experiences, and have that be part of the culture. We've done that with our L and our G, and we're starting to do that with our T. I would like to see us move forward on all of those aspects, but also, like you said, that intentionality, that welcoming, and then also just to have those days of remembrances and those commemorations throughout the year that speaks specifically to the B, and have that programming intentional, and not assume that we're covering all the bases, just like you said. We've got the same gender, the opposite gendered, the non-binary all covered, but to make sure that is a part of your discussion. Using inclusive language throughout all your programming is very, very important.
Yeah. So we've definitely got into the call to action part of the conversation. Allison, I'll go to you in a second. Andrew, can I put you on the hot spot next?
Absolutely. So had another female mentee tells me a story that she was dating a woman. She comes into work and her coworker asks, what was that? What did you say? Do you currently have a boyfriend? Do you currently have a boyfriend? And it instantly shut her down. So one of the things I think we can do is we can watch our language, right? We can say, you're currently seeing anyone, as opposed to you currently have a boyfriend, because as a bi person, that it, particularly young people where maybe you're just new into it, you're not super confident. We want people to feel welcome and included and valid. And so when we can make those little language tweaks, it can have a really big impact. So every person has the ability to kind of make those language tweaks. Let's get rid of the, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? Let's just get rid of that. That's an easy one. Are you seeing anyone? Much better, much more inclusive. The other thing I would say is that if you are bi and in the workplace, get involved, be visible, be proud of who you are, because Like I said, we're the silent majority. Let's not be so silent. Let's get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved in your employee networks, because you never know the impact. It's not just for you, but it's for the other people who maybe are struggling, maybe are facing some problems. And we want to make sure that, like I said, we know that people are more effective when they can bring their full authentic self to work. And we want to create and continue to create that environment.
Awesome. And Allison?
So I think it's definitely key that we consider and people consider also the language that they use. And we've talked about that. But if someone brings up themselves to you and tells you about their partner, and it's a same-sex partner, and maybe you're not comfortable because it's not something that rolls off your tongue, you might want to practice. And don't forget to bring up their partner. You know, I love it when my coworkers say, "Oh, how's Bethany doing? And did y'all go camping this weekend?" And it's building that personal connection. And I think that, you know, it's sometimes people shy away from it a little bit just because it's new to them. And so I think just remember that, remember remember who they are, and don't be afraid to bring it up and ask how they're doing.
Yeah. And that really speaks to creating the kind of culture where a client, or a customer or somebody who is looking at your organization to potentially be their place of employment. If you create that kind of a culture that welcomes all of those people in to feeling like this is a place they want to be. It doesn't matter what you do, what you sell, the type of product you represent. And Chris, I'll just come back to that you and I share 15-year-olds, right? It's the kind of world we all want to live in. So, yeah. Well, I want to thank all of you today for sharing this time, sharing your thoughts and your stories and journeys. Again, all very different, but very valid under the BE umbrella. And thank you for making yourselves vulnerable and sharing today. So on behalf of Bank of America and my teammates, we want to thank you for attending today. Cheers.